On this episode of Shop Talk, we're going to talk about what to do when you have problems with your ride. Shalom Friends, Robert Gottselig here with the Friends of Israel Gospel Ministry, and I have with me here a fellow colleague, John Plants from Manitoba here, and we've got a motorcycle right in front of us here. John, would you, is this your bike, John?
No, this is not my bike. Actually, it's one of my good friend, John Feeks. John and Lindy, we're at the home of John and Lindy Feeks, and John is the pastor of the New Life Sanctuary Church here in Winnipeg. And it's actually his bike, and we've come to help.
All right. Well, I see John in the background. John, why don't you come over here and talk to us about this bike of yours?
All right.
It's sure good to see you, bro.
Good to see you too, my brothers.
Good to see you, John.
God bless you. Yeah.
So what do we have here, John? What your bike is this?
This is an 81 Honda Twin Star. It's 198 cc, so it's just a little bike. And my wife and I purchased this several years ago. And I rode it for half a season, and then it stopped working. But it sure was fun to ride, you know. And I have a friend of mine, he has a great big Harley Davidson, 1600 cc. I took that thing for a ride, and it was not more fun than this. So I'd really like to get this thing running again.
Yeah. And so, well, John was telling me that you've been having a bunch of problems with it and can't get it running.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the things that you've been doing to it?
Well, we replaced the carburetor. We replaced the CDI box, the spark plugs, the regulator rectifier. We replaced the pulse generator down at the bottom, new battery, and this bike will not turn over. There's no spark. There's no spark getting to the plugs. So I'm not sure what else to do. I'll have to procure a manual, I guess. You know.
Yeah, well, one of the things, when John said, he put it on Facebook that I need help, and I responded and I said I will give him help. But John, does it even turn over though? Because we're here to help you.
Well, it'll try. If you want to listen to this, it will try. But battery's getting kind of low now. But let's give it a listen. And that's all you get.
And you got fuel, but no spark.
Correct.
New CDI box, new plugs, new carb, obviously.
Yeah, new coil in there also. Yeah.
New coil.
Yeah.
Well, if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube here, and you have any help tips for Pastor John, just type those in the comments, and I'm sure he'd love to know, how he can maybe get this running here. But yeah, so you bought it. How many years ago did you buy that?
Oh, I think maybe 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Something like that.
5 years ago, and it sat for the season through the winter, and it was the next season in the spring it wouldn't start.
Well, yeah, and this it started petering out first, so I thought it was fuel line. I thought it had to do with gas. And it turns out it's all electrical.
Right.
So those sparks, the spark plugs are just not sparking. That's our problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to look into that. But what do you do if you have problems with your ride? One of the first things is don't be scared to ask questions. A lot of times you feel maybe your question's foolish or something, but there are no foolish questions if you don't know the answers. So, don't be scared to ask questions. Also, if you know the answers to something, I remember as a young mechanic back, I got my interprovincial in 1990, and I remember sometimes a service writer would come up to me and say, "Rob, there's somebody out here that'd like to ask you some, mechanical question about something." I always took the time or day to help people out. And that's kind of what it's all about, especially when you're looking at stuff like this, or you're working on your muscle car or a classic car. If you don't know the answer to something, ask the question. And if you do know the answer, share it with somebody. Take the time to share it with people.
And you don't want a guy like me actually fixing anything. You don't want me working with the tools. In fact, I remember riding a bike, and the first time I was about 14 years old, and I rolled it. And so I've never been a person to ride bikes. So I admire that John wants to get this thing. He's rode it, and so I wonder what that would start into if we start thinking about getting help. Where would we go in that kind of a moment?
That really reminds me of something here. Right now, friends, I think it's time for this Bible moment. Welcome back, friends. And as we were talking about Pastor John's bike, and just given the fact that when you have, a problem with something, it's don't feel bad that you have to ask people. That's a good thing. If you don't know the answer, ask. And certainly if you do know the answer, especially when people have problems with their bikes or their rides, maybe it's a muscle car or something like that, or a hot rod. If you know and you can help people, that's what it's all about. And but there's times, where we need more than just human help. We can help each other lots, but there's certain things that we have a difficulty doing and help, and we need spiritual help. And there's only one person that we can turn to for spiritual help. And John, can you share that with us a little bit?
Well, one of the things that I've done over my 44 years as a believer is I've turned to this Bible, to this book, and God gave a manual on help to be able to help us in our daily life, in our spiritual life, our walk with others, what we say, what we do, how we treat other people. And it helps us in many times with discouragement. And John, I was thinking about when you put that post on there that you were discouraged about your bike, and you said I need help, and I said here I am, I'm ready to help. Now I'm not a mechanic, I'm not here to help you in that way, but I brought Rob, and I thought that maybe others would be able to come and help. And I was just thinking about you.
Yeah, that was very kind of you, John. And just to keep things in perspective here, as a pastor, I am busy with countless things each day that really matter. And this bike doesn't really matter in the long run, not in the grand scheme of things. And that's precisely why I can't spend endless hours worrying about this bike. But I did put a post on Facebook saying I'm a little frustrated with this vehicle. And you came, right to my aid. Yeah. And you said, I think that we can help you, John. So I very much appreciate that, John. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of a very passage in this book and found in Acts chapter 16, verses 10 and 11. And I just want to turn to that very passage. Actually, it's 9, 10, and 11. And it says, And a vision appeared to Paul in the night. There stood a man of Macedonia, prayed him, saying, Come over into Macedonia and help us. And I thought about that, John, that that we were coming here to help you because you asked for help. And it was a vision, but you put yours on Facebook. But I like what Paul's response is in verse 10. And after he had seen the vision, immediately we endeavored to go into Macedonia, assuredly gathering that the Lord had called us for to preach the gospel unto them. The good news, the gospel that's from the beginning, the very first word in Hebrew, Barashit, in the beginning is about a son, a man, and a cross. And then to see how it all plays out, because every one of us needs help. And I know, John, that as a pastor, that was on your heart, to help people. And so, if you could just share like some things that you do as a pastor to help people.
Well, the number one thing that I think any pastor should be doing is he should be loving the Lord Jesus, and he should be diligently laboring in the word and doctrine. And the Bible says that the pastor who does that is worthy of a double honor. Because then and only then can you really help people by navigating their minds and thoughts to the God of the Bible as he's revealed himself in the pages of the Old and New Testaments. And I'd like to say, I will remind my people constantly that we don't just need God's help for the really hard things. We need God's help for everything. Remember, Daniel told Belshazzar, God holds your breath in his hands. And the very reason why we are able to think and drive cars and hold down jobs and all the rest of it, navigate through this life and make right judgments, is because the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has enabled us. And so we should be always grateful to God and not pretend like we can do any one thing on our own.
Yes.
And this bike is a good reminder to me that I'm very limited in terms of experience and expertise and insight. I just don't have a whole lot, especially when it comes to this kind of thing.
Yes.
But
Well, thanks, John, Pastor John and John Plants for sharing that Bible moment with us. And we're blessed to have this beautiful day to shoot on location here in Manitoba. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to make sure that John's got power going to that CDI, and we're going to see if we can get this thing running. So until next time, friends, this has been Shop Talk with the Friends of Israel Gospel Ministry.